Hey, good morning. I'm going to show you a video on how to build a double reverse loop that overlaps itself. It's really a lot of fun to use, and it gives you so much storage for some of your track. You can pass trains over each other, and you're about to see a couple of my engines on part of that double reverse loops and all of the options that are available. A lot of fun to build. Just got to be careful. All right, let's get to how to build this thing. Here is the inner guts of the after I have glued down the track. And what you can see is there are two reverse loops that are um, overlapping each other. That was the first one. Here's the second one coming back around and out this way. This is the control panel on how to take care of all the switches that are involved in the crossings. And there's a whole video on this part. So let's get going on how this had to be installed. So effectively, what you have is a point to point, which goes from here to here. And if you're doing DCC, you can then add reverse loops with a chunk of the track that has to be insulated, that will have to install the a chip, and we'll talk about that in the next slide. And of course, you have two Y switches for these point to point with reverse loops on the end. The things to consider when you have a reverse loop is, and you need a certain distance in your reverse loop for the chip to detect the short. And that it becomes important when you're going to overlap both of these reverse loops. What I do is I take my longest engine and I multiply by 2 to build in a long enough distance so that it really does detect the short and does the right things with the chip. So um, here's what we're going to do is we're going to take the first reverse loop, which used to be here, and we start moving it. This is just notional, right? Because we're heading towards overlapping these two together. We're going to combine them. And the thing it does is it gives you a tremendous amount of, once you combine them, you get a lot of different paths, more than you had before, and which is the part that's a lot of fun. So you can have the regular reverse loop, which would go like this, or you can just treat it as a loop where you go up this way and then you come through that switch and you come back down. What you're adding, by the way, in here, and we'll talk about that in the next slide, is you're adding two switches that are here and a crossing. So you can just do a regular loop. You can do a loop that goes like this, where the train has not changed directions, but has gone through the double reverse loops itself. The nice thing is if you have two trains going in the same direction, you can put one in here, park it in here, while the other one goes along and passes it going in that direction. So lots of new pathways that were probably not quite there before, and a lot of fun to run trains this way. So here is the extra. You need to add a regular switch here and a regular switch here, and you add a crossing right here. I tried a variety of crossings, some that were square, 90 degrees, some that were 60 degrees. I found the 60-degree one is the one that worked better. You still have the two Y switches that you had at the beginning. So once you've done on all of that and glued, I use liquid nails to glue my track down to my my foundation, and you really do need to run trains on every single aspect of the loop. The other thing that's really important here is to leave an access hole, and I'll talk about the size that's needed in your train room. to do all of this, because if there's any derailments, and once in a while there is, um, now, I ran all of my trains in all directions through all the various loops that were in here, and invariably, a switch doesn't get thrown exactly right. You get a little derailing that you have to fix, and you have to pop your head up in here. So yeah, keep the axis whole, definitely. But yeah, this is what it looks like though, and of course I'm going to cover most of this with mountains. Quite a lot of fun to have built. So this is just a picture from both directions, and again, other trains that are being run in different directions of the loop. Here is going in this way. Here's a train coming out of the other side of the reverse loop, and I had started putting some figures and stuff just to see what it would look like. Kind of neat, a lot of fun to watch. Um, All right, let's talk about size here. What you can see is the diameter here of this loop, 4ON30, so it's a narrow gauge, was 4 feet in diameter. I actually wish I had made it 4.5 feet. I needed just a little more curvature. The other thing is that I added 2 inches on the outside. So between the wall and the track, there's a couple inches. That's mostly defined by the overhang of various cars as they're being pulled. Um, I have, and especially my passenger cars are the ones that tend to have the most overhang to them. So I just make sure that I made a measurement that they clear. I gave them an extra ½ inch, and that way I don't scrape the walls, I don't derail anything. And you can see I have a closet. I use it for mostly storage of my boxes and so on. But yeah, the door was taken out so that I could put my layout. The other thing that I wish I had done is I wish I had moved these switches further up here. Part of the reason is that by being way down here, there's a lot of curvature to this track, and there's a lot of curvature to this track here to make the loop. So if I could have, I would have moved my Y back further, and I couldn't because there's a door coming up, and I would have put this further up. The other advantage is it would have given me, and we'll talk about that in the next slide, more distance here for the insulation of my chip. And now we're talking about the distance of the for the reverse unit that I put in for my DCC. So I insulate from where the switch is. So you really do have to make sure there's no current here. And I also insulated right before the 60-degree crossing that's sitting right here. And I did it also again for this part. You see there's 2 reverse loops, so you have to have 2 units that do the auto reversing for this loop. So not too hard. I wish I had a little more distance, but there's still plenty. There's more than twice the engine size, the biggest engine that I have. So it turned out to be okay, and it works just well, just fine. And then lastly, here is the control panel that I had to develop with green, red LEDs in order to tell me the pathway that my engine was taking. So if I was coming in this way, I would come around. It's green, green telling me that my switches are set right. There's not going to be derailment. And remember, half of this is inside the mountain, right? So you're not seeing these switches. So they couldn't come around. I would come through here. It's green, so everything is fine. But this one is red, telling me that I would have a derailment, right? So I need to flip this toggle switch such that it becomes green. And there's a whole video on how I did that. Now, the next thing is using the scenery for this thing, which is a lot of fun. And I used Bragdon Enterprise system of building mountains. Here's the first layer with there's obviously 4 tunnels that come out of this thing. Here's when it's completely finished for that first layer. The next thing to do, of course, is tunnels or tunnel entrances. I did that out of uh, coffee stir stick and balsa and a foam uh, uh, base that I glued everything onto. A lot of fun. And then, of course, you put on the rocks, and the rocks meet up um, to the to the tunnel entrances, and you can see all four of them here, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And seeing trains coming in and out of there is just so much fun, and especially if it's in the dark and the headlights come out, it's just a blast. And then finally, here is um, the well, after it's been painted, and then eventually I put in grasses and everything else, and now you're just gonna be watching some movies of trains going through these tunnels. So hopefully you're encouraged. It's not too hard to do. It just takes time, it takes patience. Run your engines in all directions. Fix everything, right? Because especially the insulated sections, they can in a curve, they can be slightly out of alignment, and you want to make sure to take care of all alignment issues before you go on. All right, hopefully you enjoyed watching. It was fun doing.